Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Victoria, and I am the coordinator of the City Hall community meetings. Before we begin, I'd like to note that live transcription is available tonight for those joining via Zoom. If you would like to see live captioning during this meeting, please select the See Captions button. A few additional housekeeping items before we begin. Bathrooms are located down the hall on the left and right of the cafeteria. Everyone is welcome to pizza and refreshments if you haven't gotten that already. Tonight's City Hall community meeting is in a hybrid format, meaning that in addition to those here with us tonight, there are residents tuned in via Zoom. The purpose of the City Hall community meetings is to prioritize residents and their questions and to give important updates from city staff. Presentations will not be taking too deep a dive into any subject and will primarily focus on main updates. For the sake of time, we've established a question process. Once each speaker finishes, we'll first take up to 2 questions from those in person with us. To those here in person, please raise your hand, and we do have a staff member with a wireless microphone, so you are able to answer your question or ask your question. Presenters, please make sure to speak slowly and to repeat questions that you receive in person so those on Zoom can hear. After in-person questions, we'll be taking another 2 from those on Zoom. For those on Zoom, please write any questions you have in the Q&A area on your screen. Questions will be read aloud by myself or a staff member to be answered by the presenter. Please make sure your microphones on your devices are turned up, and we'll do our best to enunciate and speak slowly and clearly. If we don't get to your question initially, don't worry. Upon completion of presentations, staff will also be taking additional questions, and we will have a laptop for staff to answer any unanswered Zoom questions. I'd just like to quickly ask all city staff that are here tonight in person to please stand, and we'll go kind of around the room. If you could just start with your name and your position title, and I apologize, I'm going to repeat just so those on Zoom can hear. Jim Dunn, Captain of the Police Department. Chief Charles Breen of the Fire Department. Nick Salerno, Elections Commissioner. Vanessa Bukili, Senior Urban Forester. Tom Galagani, Acting Executive Director of OSPCD. Rich Race, Executive Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management. Jesse Moose, Construction Liaison, also from Infrastructure and Asset Management. Adrian Pomeroy, ADA Coordinator. Lenore Galindo, Community Engagement Specialist with the RSJ Department. Denise Molina Capers, Director of the Racial and Social Justice Department. Greg Jenkins, Director of the Arts Council. Sarah? Sorry. Sarah Lewis, Director of Planning, Preservation, and Zoning. Aaron? Aaron Noel, Community Engagement Specialist with our OSE department. Ashley Speliotis, Director of the Council on Aging. Kate White, Outreach Coordinator from the Mobility Division. Fred Bourbon, Co-Deputy Director of the Office of Housing Stability. I'm sorry. Ben Demers, Economic Development Planner. Sorry. Rachel Medcarney, Acting Director of Economic Development. Thank you all. Staff are ready to speak with you and answer your questions. Please feel free to go up and say hello, or if you're on Zoom, please feel free to write in a question and we will direct it to the appropriate department. Around 8 p.m., this meeting will come to a close. If you have any remaining questions, please ask that you email cm@somervillema.gov. All questions will be responded to in the coming days. City staff will also be hanging out after this meeting for additional conversations. I do want to note that tonight's meeting is also being recorded and will be on the City TV YouTube channel in the coming days. Thank you for taking the time and being gracious with us as we get used to the hybrid format. I'd now like to invite Councilor Scott up just to say a few words. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And thank you all for being here. I just want to welcome everybody to Ward 2, all the city staff that came here. I also want to welcome back so many neighbors. It's great to see so many familiar faces, especially some of the wonderful seniors that we have here front and center. And just, I'm really grateful that we're doing this here tonight. I know probably better than most that COVID's not over. Just a month ago, I had it for the first time. So it's real. Please keep wearing the mask. I'm glad I'm this far away from y'all. But also, I'm just really grateful that we're doing these meetings again. A couple things I'm especially grateful for. I'm glad we're not calling it Resistat anymore. That was a ridiculous name. So new mayor, new name, but really the same function. You know, as your Ward 2 councilor, it's my job to work with the legislature to advocate for policy change, to implement laws that actually reflect the values of our community. But I also serve a role maybe more of intercession. You know, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who makes sure that when you're having problems with the city department, when you just don't understand how all those budget dollars aren't getting done, the things that impact you most directly, when a city department doesn't seem to be working for you, that's when I get that call all the time. I love it that I get that call all the time. And I love that I see so many of you at office hours that happen right on my front porch every Friday. But these meetings are especially important. And I'm glad they're happening again, because this is when all the city staff and our mayor herself come down to Ward 2 to hear directly from you. So I'm also especially glad to see that there's only 35 slides tonight. We don't have 2 hours of PowerPoint. Thank you. I'm going to give a round of applause for that myself. I want to say thank you for bringing your passion and your expertise, because nobody understands this neighborhood. Nobody understands what this neighborhood needs, and nobody understands how the city can serve it best, better than y'all that live here. So I'm here. I appreciate the courtesy of having my name on the slides tonight, but I'm going to be watching them as an audience member with you for the first time, just like y'all are. And I'm sure that the questions that you have are going to sound a lot like the ones I've been asking too. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for being here. And with that, I just want to welcome our Mayor, Katjana Ballantyne.
So good evening. It's so nice to see everybody tonight. So yes, so I didn't see. So Kristen Strezer, Councilor at Large, Willie Burnley, Councilor at Large, are also here. Are there any other councilors that I did not acknowledge, or any other elected official? Oh yes, Mike Conley was here. Is he still? There he is. State Representative, thank you. Alana Krepshin, School Committee, Ward 2. Anybody else? Okay, please remind me if anybody else steps in. Thank you. So my pronouns are she, her. I'm very excited to be with you this evening. I've attended these meetings as a resident, as a city councilor, as a city council president, and now as your mayor. Some of you may remember, as the good counselor from Ward 2 said, these were previously known as Resistat meetings. You know, I was hoping that we could just do a little icebreaker to see who's in the audience tonight. So I will ask you if you would raise your hand after the following questions. If this is your first meeting, would you raise your hand? Wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much for coming. If you've lived in Somerville under a year, raise your hand. Okay, if you've lived in Somerville between 2 and 5 years, raise your hand. If you've lived in Somerville between 5 and 10, raise your hand. Thank you. 10 and 15. 15 and 20? Over 20. If you've lived in Somerville your entire life, raise your hand. Wonderful. Woo. Thank you. If you have a pet, raise your hand. Wow. Okay. If you have children in the Somerville Public Schools, raise your hand. Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions about how you typically move around the city. If you primarily walk around the city, raise your hand. Okay. If you ride your bike around the city, take the bus, use your car. Okay, great. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing. And now we have a little better sense of who's in the audience with us today. I hope tonight provides you clarity on how City Hall is here to serve you and to be a resource for you. I also hope it empowers you to get involved in city processes. The goal of the Ward City Hall community meetings is to provide information, access, and community. Information is a word we hear so much, it's easy to forget how important it is. But the old phrase, knowledge is power, still stands. It is just as important that community members understand how we use city resources as it is for the staff who do their work. To identify and act on current issues, we first must understand Somerville today. So let's zoom out and look at some of the facts. The city of Somerville is 4 square miles. In comparison to our neighbors, Cambridge is just under 7 square miles and Boston is 45 square miles. Every 3 years, roughly 60% of Somerville's population turns over. Those are residents moving in and out of the city. That's roughly 50,000 residents. Between 2010 and 2020, Somerville's population rose 7% to 81,000 residents. 50 languages are spoken within the city of 50 plus languages are spoken within the city of Somerville. 76% of our population is white. Somerville Public Schools is almost the reverse, with it being a majority minority school district and over 60% identifying as low income. Jobs in Somerville increased by over 8,800 between 2011 and 2021. Our financial resources have grown in the last decade. We call it FY, fiscal year 13. So around 2013, we had a budget of just under 185 million. For this year that we're working in right now, our budget is a little over 309 million. We have 17 city parks that have been renovated in the last 10 years. Over 350 trees are added to our urban canopy per year. In the last 5 years, that's over 700 just in Ward 2 alone. So vehicles on the road in Ward 2. Somerville bears the burden of regional cut-through motor vehicle traffic. Ward 2 definitely feels this. For folks to visualize, the state-owned roads, Route 28, McGrath Highway, between Washington Street and Somerville Ave, carry roughly 40,000 vehicles on an average day. So that's the numbers I'm giving you are the weekday, Monday through Friday. By comparison, here are the statistics for our major city-owned streets. Washington Street to Joyce Street, 20,000. Washington Street to Argenziano School, 10,000. Somerville Ave to Union Square Plaza, 18,000. Somerville Ave at Market Basket, 15,000. Somerville Ave at Miriam Street, 10,000. Medford Street at the railroad underpass is about 10,000. Prospect Street at Webster Ave is about 10,000. The city works every day to reduce the number of vehicles on our streets to improve public safety, quality of life, and climate outcomes. These data points matter because traffic is a major issue for safety, health, and quality of life. All of these statistics are just a sampling that confirms significant changes from where we've been to where we are as a city. It's up to us to act on what we know. These community meetings are a step in the right direction. They allow city departments to tell their story for you, our residents, to be kept informed. So access should be multifaceted, and we must take every opportunity to ensure it. As our community is changing, I'm establishing systems that give residents access to shape the change around them. Job seekers and neighbors need access to city planners and private developers. Youth need to be heard by our school, city, and by adults. Historically underrepresented voices need to be sought out and amplified in all our shared decision-making. Longtime residents and newcomers must have opportunities to find common ground on our shared goals and priorities. Access is also rooted in affordability, which is created not just by housing, but also access to good jobs. It's the ability to live, work, and do business in Somerville. It's the ability to walk, ride, and roll to civic opportunities safely and easily, or to participate virtually. We're working to connect people. This past spring, I hosted a forum connecting developers and unions, the first of its kind for a mayor to host such a forum, building off what I did as a city councilor. Last week, we invited in more than 60 Somerville nonprofits to deepen our work to aid them in their service for our community. In the fall will be developers, this is the fall, but for the spring, we'll pick up another theme, and that will be with developers or access to something. So we're taking the feedback out of these forums to see what else residents want or community-based organizations need to help to thrive here. I'll continue to host these twice a year in the spring and in the fall to connect groups, to develop relationships and opportunities to create progress for all. Many of our city's major projects include public process to get community feedback. City Hall community meetings are another vehicle for residents to meet, talk, come together on issues that matter to them most. Residents like you played a key role in the development of the Summer Vision's 2040 comprehensive plan. So that's our strategic plan, our visionary plan of where we want to be by 2040. The plan captures community goals, values, and directly identifies ongoing challenges. The Summer Vision's 2040 goals include affordable housing, job creation, mobility and infrastructure, climate and sustainability, and more. Summer Vision's 2040 is greatly echoed in my administration's Progress for All agenda. My Progress for All agenda is a commitment to an open and inclusive government. First, we asked, how do we create progress for all? The answer is through inclusive, intentional efforts, always viewed through an equity lens. We must make space for all voices and prioritize those who feel unheard. Progress for all begins with listening and understanding the concerns. So here's how I've been engaging Somerville, our Somerville community. I've held over 10 COVID listening sessions so far with various residents groups to understand concerns, ideas, and needs. I've met with over 30 senior groups and over 10 youth groups. I've dedicated 1 million from the city's budget for the first time ever participatory working group. We've launched the Voices of Somerville survey in April to hear the issues that are most important. So I've not only gone to meet people where they're most comfortable, but there are some people who like to be connected through electronic surveys or emails. I've attended many city events and talked with many residents, and I've been listening to our youth. So what are the issues that I'm hearing? Affordability, housing and living costs. I've been hearing about COVID impacts, about the financial recovery that people are going through from COVID, the health and safety and food access issues they might have. I've been hearing about social justice issues, the environment, global warming, sustainability. Been hearing about transportation issues, city infrastructure, schools, city buildings, and our street services and underground. I've been hearing about quality of life issues, rodents, public safety. My administration and city staff have taken concrete steps to address multiple areas of concern citywide. Affordability, we have free breakfast and lunch at our Somerville public schools. We have free tea passes, that's both the subway and the bus, for youth starting in age 7th grade up to senior year. To help people recover from COVID, we've organized the Somerville Food Security Coalition, identifying access to food to Somerville mobile markets. We've also launched citywide $15 SNAP and PEBT match programs for the Somerville farmers markets. We have cab to health programs, which provide free rides to grocery stores, food pantries, farmers markets, or medical appointments. The economic development has grant awards for small businesses. We have free and rapid tests, COVID tests. We have K95 masks, which are available at the City Hall and all libraries. We have flex funds for rental assistance if you're having difficulty paying your rent and major utilities. On social progress, we're happy to say we've staffed our racial and social justice department. Our Summer Nova Office of Immigrant Affairs has expanded now with 6 languages offered for interpretation and translation. That's Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Nepali, Chinese Mandarin, Chinese Cantonese. We had a historic increase of 10% in funds to the Somerville Public School. It's the only community in the state. Thank you. That has also translated into 10 additional one of the things is 10 additional mental health staff at all levels in the public schools, from behavioral therapists to social workers for youth and more. For affordable housing, we've added, first time ever, $8.5 million to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund so they can acquire land once it goes up for sale. We've used a tool that the state allows municipalities use to finance a affordable housing project known as Clarendon Hill up in Ward 7 to build nearly 300 affordable housing units. We've also added over 80 affordable housing units within the neighborhoods to the market. Here's where Progress for All is headed. We're reimagining the policing, coming up with public safety process for all. Public safety survey has been launched. Also, if you want to help us hire, and build out our staff to support the communities in need. Some positions include, we're looking to hire an LGBTQ coordinator, youth services director, health deputy director, green clean coordinator, chief administrative officer. We also have positions in the Somerville Public Schools that are open, and there's more on our city website. If you have concerns that have not been mentioned tonight, we're here tonight beyond to talk to you. Know that we are hard at work in numerous other areas, and we are actively assessing all city's activities. As stated in my inaugural address, my pledge to you as mayor is that I will always have an open and honest conversation with you about the issues we face and our plans to address them. The City Hall community meetings are a vehicle to do just that. I thank you for your participation as we continue to build progress for all in Somerville. Thank you. And, you know, I can certainly take some questions now if you, what is it, a couple, if anybody has them, or we can move on to the next person. Okay, great.
Good evening, I'm Erin. I'm with the Office of Sustainability and Environment, and I'm here to present about some updates we have in our office. So our mission statement is to develop and implement policies and programs that minimize environmental impacts and greenhouse gas emissions, build resiliency, increase equity, enabling a healthy and enjoyable environment for all people of Somerville, and a responsible city government. So something that's very, I guess, with the times right now for winter, we have the community choice electricity program that we're locked in for another season. So we have stable and competitive rates for electricity costs. You can choose between 3 programs with variable renewability energy amounts. It also promotes regional and zero carbon and renewable energy generation and job creation as well, because most of the energy that is funded, most of the energy that's drawn upon is from Massachusetts and like New England region. Renters can also enroll in this because you can do it without your landlord's permission. And it's from this November to 2024 of December. And for more information, you can visit the website that's not there, which is cce.somervillema.gov. Then we also have the revamp of the climate ambassadors. It's something that we rolled out right before COVID, and we went online with it, but we heard that a lot of people want it back in person, which is very valid because it's very more engaging in person. So we also listened to the community and heard that it was kind of hard for people who had jobs or who had children. So we do have stipends to cover babysitting, or like you're a student, like if you have to like work an after school job like I did, you can skip like 2 or 3 days and you can come and do this if you want to. And you can also sign up for like the program at that site, or you can scan the QR code. We also have our Climate Forward update that's coming up. So we prioritize equity, mitigation, adaptation, and resiliency. And we're looking to see if we're doing that and if we should be doing more. So we go into the community and we ask questions. We are also asking for your feedback. Do you feel like we're doing enough? Are we not doing enough? Are we doing just all right? What do you want to see? What you don't want to see? So the period of comments are going to be open soon. You can also sign up for the newsletter, and that will like let you know when we're having the comment period. So love to hear from everyone about the concerns and comments. And that's all for me. If anyone has any questions.
So thank you all for coming. I'm Fred Berman. I'm the Co-Deputy Director of Office of Housing Stability. And I think the first thing I want to do is just help distinguish between the Housing Division and the Office of Housing Stability. The Housing Division is the bricks and mortar portion of OSPCD around housing, and we are the people division. So the Housing Division does inclusionary housing. They implement the city's ordinance around requiring developers to create 1 out of every 5 units to make them affordable. They do rehab and lead. They do the condo review board where developers and owners who are converting properties to a condominium have to go through. And they manage the city's participation in the state's continuum of care for homeless services. And they do some other things as well as staffing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. What our office does, the Housing Stability Office, is help people access rental assistance. We help people access legal services when their tenancies are at risk. We also help a few people access mortgage assistance. There are fewer programs in the state that enable that. We help people do housing search when they can't find a way to stay in Somerville. Well, when they can't find a way to stay in their current apartment, sometimes they have to move out of Somerville. And we do policy and program development. So the next thing I wanted to do is just say thank you for our existence, because if it weren't for the voters of Somerville who made affordable housing a top priority, we wouldn't be here. And the city council and the mayors, both the past mayor, Curtatone, and the current mayor, Ballantyne, have been very generous in supporting our staff development so that we are better able to meet the needs that we are asked to meet. We've had about 4,500 different requests for assistance over our 3 years or so of existence, 3.5 years. We have about 130 requests each month. They range from requests for help resolving landlord-tenant issues, questions about tenants' rights or landlords' rights. We have lots and lots of requests, especially during the pandemic, for rental assistance. And we have requests again for housing search support, especially startup costs, because when you, in today's market, which is a crazy market, if you're moving and you're moving into a place with a $2,000 rent, you might be asked to come up with first, last security and maybe even a broker's fee, which could be $8,000. Most people don't have that in their banks. So we help people with moving costs. We leverage state, federal, and city funds, and we contract with the Homeless Coalition, Somerville Homeless Coalition, and CAST, which both do a great job of making sure that we're in compliance and getting the money out to the organizations that need it. We also contract with Cambridge Somerville Legal Services and with De Novo Legal Services for representation and advice on cases that go to court. We contract with CAS to do tenant outreach, education, and organizing as buildings are threatened with turnover. A new landlord buys it, a new owner buys a building, and they want to empty it and renovate it and turn it into luxury housing. We want to make sure that, if nothing else, the tenants who are living there have time to make plans to have some stability as long as possible. And certainly what we really try to do is make sure that the tenants have a chance to stay there. And sometimes we're able to partner with organizations like SCC, Somerville Community Corporation, to buy a building like that and keep it affordable. So those are the kinds of things that we do. We've leveraged over $5 million now of rental assistance. And the city has been very generous in supporting that effort beyond just the state and federal monies that are available. And that's one of the reasons why Somerville has had one of the lowest eviction rates over the past 2 or 3 years of any of the communities in our metropolitan area. Notwithstanding the fact that something like 70% of housing transactions pre-pandemic were cash. So people walking in with $700,000-800,000 and buying property, or even more if they're buying multifamily property. And as soon as you buy a new property, you raise the rent. So we've managed to enable people to stick around and with the help of considerable rental assistance and, as I said, legal advocacy. The other thing that we do is we work on policy and programs, both within the city of Somerville and advocating at the state legislature. So Councilor Burnley was one of the, first, I guess I'll start with, we had created something called the Housing Stability Notification Act, which required that landlords, when they are trying to evict somebody, provide the tenant with information about their rights and about resources that would be available to help them avoid housing loss. So informing them about us, about the funds that are available to cure an arrears, and about the access to legal services. Councilor Burnley recommended that we do one step further, and the city council approved that, and we worked on drafting with them an ordinance that requires landlords to provide a comprehensive information to their tenants at the outset of a tenancy about what their rights and resources would be, so that they know, for example, about the need for adequate heating, the need for adequate ventilation, basically what an apartment should provide when you rent it, how they're. Thank you. So we've also created, and I think Mayor Ballantyne mentioned the Flex Fund, and the Flex Fund is something that's a little bit more flexible than some of the state and federal programs, so that we can help people not only with the rent, but maybe with some of their other costs, so that they're able to stay in an apartment, a car repair, so that somebody can continue working, so that they can continue to pay the rent. We also created something called the Somerville Voucher Incentive Program, Summer VIP, which incentivizes landlords and brokers to accept for the first time a Section 8, a voucher, with their apartment. And that's not just a giveaway. It recognizes that landlords that participate in that program have to go through a housing inspection that other landlords don't go through, and have to go through several weeks of paperwork before they can accept the tenancy. So this kind of compensates them and tries to make it more feasible for landlords to participate in that program. And once they do, they realize that it's a great deal for them. We're working on trying to figure out how to create a municipal voucher program to help people who can access the Section 8 program. It's a pilot. We're hoping that it'll work. We think we're really close. You'll find out pretty soon. We also work on state legislation to try to make the environment for affordable housing a little bit more favorable. And all kudos to Rep. Conley here, who's been a tremendous advocate in the state legislature for affordable housing programs, including rent stabilization. And then we also we've been advocating for a transfer fee, which doesn't penalize residents. It assesses fees from the non-resident buyers and sellers of property. In other words, the corporations and LLCs that move property around, that constitute the majority of transactions in Somerville. A tenant's right to purchase, a right to counsel, so that there isn't this power imbalance when tenants are facing an eviction. And finally, eviction ceiling. So that's kind of what we do. We can go into tremendous detail, but I won't. Thank you, and any questions? And I just want to acknowledge Mike Filoni, who's the director of the Housing Division, who leads those other programs that I was mentioning before. Any questions?
Any housing questions for Fred?
I couldn't hear you, so wait when the mic comes.
Just curious how many Section 8.
I don't have an answer to that question. I will provide it. The Section 8 program, the Somerville Housing Authority issues Section 8s. So does Metro Housing Boston, which is a regional housing authority. Most of those are project-based, which means that they're attached to the units, like, for example, Clarendon Hill Towers, or some of the other developments that have units, vouchers built into the development of the property. But I don't know the exact number.
Hi, thank you. I know we probably don't want to go into a lot of detail, but I'm just wondering if you could explain what rent stabilization looks like and maybe how
Actually, I'm going to ask State Rep Connolly to talk about his proposal, since because he's the architect.
Well, thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Let's hear it for Fred, and let's hear it for the Office of Housing Stability. Ellen Schechter is doing such incredible work for the city of Somerville. And we're so lucky to have Mayor Ballantyne's entire team supporting us. But to answer the question, rent stabilization, rent control, there are no formal definitions. We get to really, I think, come up with the definition. What I can share with you in terms of the legislation that I'm supporting and that I've filed and that has made some progress in the legislature is that owner-occupant landlords in triple deckers or duplexes would be entirely exempt. And I believe that this is about making a distinction between that homeowner and that true small property owner, and then those larger corporate landlords, those absentee landlords, and those big sort of real estate speculators. And I think for too long, what has happened is the bad actors, the speculators, the corporate landlords have sort of taken the truly small landlord and propped them up as a defense against any sort of regulation. But in terms of how this could look like, it's something that's really gonna, I hope, hopefully be worked out in the next legislative session. But the final thing I'll say, and if you gave me the mic, I could sit here and talk for probably 50 hours about housing policy. But the one thing I do want to leave everyone with is to just make the point that what we are seeing right now has no precedent in the history of the United States, the level of housing emergency. And when it comes to rent stabilization, rent control, this isn't a new idea, and it's by no means a radical idea. We had rent control in the 1920s. Then when the Great Depression hit, they let it expire because rents were falling naturally. Then when World War II came, there was a push to do rent control again. We had it through the 1950s. There was actually a referendum in Massachusetts, and the majority of residents and communities supported rent control in the 1950s in Massachusetts. Back to the 1920s, Calvin Coolidge was a Republican governor. He supported rent stabilization. It went away when there was a push for urban renewal. They wanted to tear down the West End. They did terrible policies of highway construction. There was a push to get rid of rent control then. It was only gone for a short period of time, and it was back again in 1970, and it was in place until 1994. And so I just share that history with you to make the point that if you look at the last 100 years, we've never faced a housing emergency as serious as the one we now face, and we've never gone this long without some form of rent stabilization. So I would be more than happy to talk to anyone who's interested in this topic on another occasion. I don't want to take over the meeting, but I'm delighted to chat about it, and I'm grateful that we have incredible support for this concept from our mayor and from the entire city council. There have been unanimous votes to display Somerville's support. We hope to build on that in the new legislative session. Thanks.
I'll stick around for questions later. And I just want to say that it's not just Mike, but the whole state delegation for Somerville is awesome. So they all deserve it.
All right, I have no idea how I'm supposed to follow all that fabulous information and tell you something that you already know about. There is a lot of construction going on in Union Square and Boynton Yards. Surprise! The thing that I do want to encourage you is to please pay attention to emails and newsletters, and the good counselor keeps everybody informed as these projects come along. While we do have master plans that are in place for some of them, there are still more coming. Spoiler alert, the Nissenbaum parcels. And each building within the master plans, each thoroughfare, new road, new street, and each civic open space has to go through a public process. So please, please, please stay vigilant, stay on it, because we need to hear from you. So thank you.
Any questions on meetings?
Hi, my name is Councilor. I live in Norfolk Street, so we're kind of living in Boynton Yards. My question is, is there a plan for cadence so there won't be lots of construction going on and trucks blocking? Right now, 64 West, kind of making our life really difficult and fear once the whole rest of it happens, especially the business boundaries, that we can't even get around. Some of the roads we can't get around. So is there a plan the city will only allow certain construction to happen at certain times? Because it's really kind of making residents' lives very difficult.
I hear you loud and clear. Some of that happens at the city level. For example, when we have projects coming through planning, preservation, and zoning, we coordinate a lot with mobility and with engineering to sort of understand what those timelines are likely to be. And then also with inspectional services who monitors the construction. The thing that I will say is unless there is specific arrangements made for a street to be closed, every street should still be passable. If there are construction vehicles blocking a street, please notify 311. And then we can get somebody out to make sure that that doesn't happen. But that's how we can keep track of that. There is a lot going on. And the timing of it is sort of it's going to be going on for a number of years, unfortunately. But fortunately, because of what it does to our tax revenue. But if you really are having problems with street blockages, please call 311.
With all your construction, where's the biggest problem of the tracks? You're not doing anything down the North Two tracks, because we have nothing here. Are you planning on forcing these contractors to exterminate before they build, to make sure that they are exterminating?
That is part of the construction side of things. So that's actually ISD's inspectional services responsibility, but I will definitely make sure that that message gets delivered. There are rules in place for making sure that things are safe and clean as possible during construction. So I will make sure that oh, there we go. There's Colin.
thanks for coming here. I've felt a little bit alarmed at the rate and the scale of change in Union Square. And one of us just got an announcement that the Ricky's lot is about to go up for sale to a developer. And I just want to say that when I come over the bridge on Prospect and I see that little greenery there, I have a refreshing feeling of being welcomed. And my fear is that what's going to go up there is going to be another big glass box, and it's going to turn into the seaport, which everyone acknowledges is kind of a mistake. The green space or that kind of whatever public space at a minimum in the designs. There are slivers here and things behind things, but I'd really like for it to be that when I come over the bridge, I see something green that is, or on the other side. I also hear there's an idea of tearing down the firehouse on the other side. Well, maybe a little sad because I just don't want to have 4 huge, sharp glass buildings meeting at that.
Thank you. Union Square Plaza is not going anywhere. That will always remain. We are trying to come up, so there's 2 fire stations, actually. There's the historic one that we're looking to renovate. It is not a safe building currently, so we're working on trying to figure out how to make sure that can remain because it is an important part of the square. And also the current public safety building is part of one of the disposition parcels under the Union Square neighborhood plan. So if you look at the Union Square neighborhood plan online, that would be on Somerville by Design website. You'll see there is a green space that's called the D1 block, very glamorous. The open space is not going to be on the Ricky's end of that block, but on the other side of that block, the way it is currently planned to be developed.
Thank you for the question. Change is happening in the city of Somerville, and the city and the council went through a multi-year process to rezone the area. And that zoning means is what's going to happen with different parcels around the city. And there was some zoning actually before I even got involved in elected office or your Ward 2 councilor, but the plan is online. So you can anticipate the last vote on the zoning for that area was taken in December of 2019. This is 2022. So, pardon? Right, but the rest of the plan was zoning was 2019. That's why I said some of it predates the current councilor. But what I wanted to say is there was a plan that was signed off in 2017, a larger plan that was signed off in 2019. That is all online. So you can anticipate and you can see what the big ideas were for that area. That's all I wanted you to know, is that there is information online about that. And I'm sure your ward counselor can talk to you about the particulars. Thank you.
I'll be brief, but IST keeps being mentioned. I would like to talk about the process of this day-to-day living with it. I'm a frequent flyer at 311. They are beleaguered, they take a lot of information, they take a lot of complaints. I've been told in numerous times, because I'm sure that everyone in this room has, I'll get back to ISD. Boom, nothing happens. I would like to request that there be a sign from ISD, an inspector with a name who is accessible to the residents of this area, that we can call and that meets with us on a regular basis. Because right now, the construction people are in charge. Because by the time you make a complaint, for instance, that the pictures fell off my walls 2 blocks away while they were digging at 64 Webster Ave. And when my husband went to ask them how long they would be doing it, their response was, as long as it takes. We need an immediate contact in ISD available to us to help us.
I will definitely pass that message along. I wish there was something, I had a planning magic wand right now I could wave, but I will talk to inspectional services. So.
They are our voice. They-
Sarah, we have one more question.
Okay.
Hi, Matthew Hoffman, I live right straight on Clark Street. I've been here since 2009. 20 years. The thing that really concerns me is that, like, we just heard recently that EB Sushi and that block, Dunkin' Donuts, is going to be torn down and another lab space. One, why do we need all this lab space? I understand jobs, but you're taking away those businesses that made Somerville great, and you're throwing them out the door. I don't understand why you're getting rid of these businesses that made Somerville great for these lab spaces. And, you know, maybe you can answer that, maybe you can't. Maybe it's a rhetorical question. I mean, Davis Square is now getting a lab space also. They're tearing down Burren and all of those places. Displacing businesses that have been there, that have made Somerville great, and now we're just selling out to these developers. Like, I don't.
Oh, okay. See if I can summarize. I have to repeat the question. Sorry about that. The idea that there are businesses that have made Somerville great, especially Ebi Sushi and Dunkin' Donuts, sort of right at Union Square. And some of the businesses in Davis Square are being replaced by lab buildings coming in. The Ebi Sushi block is proposed as a lab building in the Union Square neighborhood plan in the disposition office, not lab. All of the businesses in those particular parcels, and this is the same in Davis as well, have been spoken to about whether they want to stay, whether they want to remain in the new building. The example of the barn is actually remaining and being built around in Davis. So that's not going anywhere. And they have all had the option of coming back into the new building. And I don't know the status of absolutely each business.
That have been there forever, and then you're going to say, oh, this is going to take let's say minimum. Now what do? They're sitting at home, putting their thumbs, not making any money, and now you're going to say, oh, you're going to come back to this space in a year.
So the concern is for those who are online, that any sort of displacement of small businesses while there is construction going on means that they will be out of business for at least a year, if not longer, for the construction. And so whether the businesses can survive to come back and be occupying the new building if they so choose. These are decisions that are for the property owners and the businesses to work out. I know there are lots of programs that the Economic Development Division offers to those businesses, but it's outside of my scope of work from a zoning perspective. But we will, we do our best to keep the small businesses and maintain them in Somerville as best we can with the assistance programs and relocation programs that we have in place. The question,
One building's open so far. What's the percentage that's occupied right now? You know, other labs, like, do you have people lined up already to come into the space? And tell them what the percentage is.
I am not the property owner, so I can't answer that. I do believe the 101 South Street is pretty well fully occupied as I understand it. It's a difficult thing to know as to how these deals work, whether they have tenants lined up coming in ahead of time or not. I think mostly because of the funding that's required, and this is me speculating outside my class, that they probably do. But I would be very glad to talk to you one-on-one about this afterwards, so we can keep moving forward.
Good evening, folks. My name is Kate. Again, I'm from the Mobility Division. I'm going to pivot us to the street now. So I've got a map here to my left that describes kind of any upcoming street improvements in Ward 2. So the main kind of headliner this evening is our Washington Street reconstruction project. And this is where we're going to come in and fix all the sidewalks, repave the street, and do a lot of traffic calming. And traffic calming is anything from raised crosswalks to raised intersections to speed humps to where we kind of narrow the street to make it so that folks start to go a bit slower as they're driving their vehicle, and as well improve any of the intersection. Paired with that, we're doing some traffic calming around Washington Street. So you'll see for those who are joining us online and in person, the bright blue is that Washington Street from Line Street to Webster Ave reconstruction project. Then we have intersection improvements. I'm just going to list them out, but in case, just call them out if you can't see it. Somerville Ave and Central Street, Washington Street and Washington Terrace right in front of New Kitchen, and then Oak Street and Houghton Street. We're also going to be we've proposed to implement a series of speed humps. We've heard a lot from folks, both in our engagement process for Washington Street, as well as on 311, and in all of our community events where you see us tabling, you know, at your farmer's market or at summer streets about speeding. And so we propose speed humps for Dane Street, Perry Street, and Calvin Street. And then we also have some crosswalk improvements right here at Perry Street, right by Lincoln Park entrance, and some few others. So this is all being proposed and expected to begin construction in 2023 to 2024. And I'm actually going to dive a little bit more into the Washington Street project, but all of this is available along with the information on this project. So we've put out proposed designs that include protected bike lanes on both sides, expanded sidewalks to make more space for people walking, expanded bus stops so that there's more space for you to wait while you're waiting for the bus. But those bus stops also allow for folks to bike around the back so they don't have to be right up against those driving. And then we're putting in tons of raised crosswalks, both across Washington Street, as well as on a bunch of adjacent side streets. So if you're crossing Washington Street to get to Perry Park, you're now, if you're walking or wheeling, you're going to be raised up, and so that folks who are driving can see you more prominently and increase the safety, as well as if you're crossing Magnus Street or Calvin Street. We're also be creating 4 legs of the crosswalks at Calvin and Washington Street to make it easier to cross at different points, as well as more crosswalks, because we heard that lots from folks as well. So we want to hear from you. We've got a survey out right now to gather your feedback on these proposed design. If you use this QR code, it'll take you right to the site, or you can go somervillema.gov/Western Washington. And if you're joining us in person this evening, we have flyers on this table over here. I also just want to highlight some of our other flyers we have, which is for our Vision Zero Action Program. All of this work, traffic calming and things like that, are really just to increase the safety of everyone, whether you're visiting our town, whether you live here, whether you work here. We want to make sure that no one faces any severe injuries, or we want to have absolutely 0 traffic fatalities. So all of this work is to align with our Vision Zero program. And we've got some helpful materials too. around that program there.
We'll go left to right.
Yes, I've contributed to the surveys on your various, I thank you for being at Perry Park. I think you're reaching out. I mentioned that the focus on computer interactions is alienating or is not approachable by a large portion of the population that we're pressing with housing protection. I don't think that they have a certain age has the computer skills to interact as you would prefer. I was wondering what the contribution of the office was to this plan. I'm particularly concerned and parking is always an issue already in Somerville, but now access for access to those houses. Is there some provision so that you stop in front of your house without parking to unload or without getting a cyclist entirely?
Okay, so I think that there's a couple questions in there, but I want to make sure that folks on Zoom could hear. Is that how do we collaborate with the ADA coordinator or contribution from the RSJ office? And then what are the options for loading and unloading if you don't have a driveway or you don't have direct curb access? So maybe I'll start Adrian, and then if you want to chime in too. So for any of our projects, one of the first people we go to is Adrian, and I'm excited to introduce Adrian Pomeroy, our ADA coordinator, who helps us review, or not only reviews our projects, but also to think through these issues. In addition, we go to the Somerville Commission for Persons with Disability, who reviews all of our projects as well. Adrian, do you want to add anything? Sure.
Thanks, Kate. That is true. I am often one of the first staff personnel to be brought in on these mobility projects. And that comes really from that collaboration with that staff. And particularly so if there is some sort of dedicated process, for a bike lane or changing parking, making sure that we are not taking away accessible space, but even presenting the opportunity to increase it where we can. I certainly understand that not having access or worried that somebody may be penalized for not having time to unload safely is an issue, and that's definitely something we always keep in mind. As Kate said, these plans are often reviewed by the Commission for Persons with Disabilities, who offer that lived experience feedback moving forward. And as Kate said, I am happy as well to take any feedback, whether tonight or later, as mobility moves through this particular project. Certainly. Sure. Yeah. Thank you for your service. I'm happy to speak to you after this.
Thanks, Adrian. I just want to answer just the second part of that question. One of the things that we do when we're thinking through these designs is what are our options with the curb? So we think through where do we have loading and unloading space? And also that many of our loading zones do allow for passenger pickup and drop off or passenger loading. So both your trucks who are dropping off deliveries can come through, as well as when you want to come in and run in and grab a baked good from Forge maybe and come back out, having those options for folks, as well as the opportunity to increase the amount of accessible spaces that we have. So with the parking available, where can we put that and where do we make more options for folks?
So I heard you talk about speed bumps, and I've been recently over to my cousin's neighborhood, great job, love it. I heard it was up in Morrison, there's one there too. Up here, when we come off of Webster Ave onto Newton down to Springfield, it's just like people speed there. So the question is, how does one go about getting either temporary or permanent speed bumps on the street? And the speed bump at the corner of Springfield, where there's a three-way stop there, from Newton down to Springfield. Sorry, Springfield is the way. That speed bump is, I don't say it's useless because they don't really stop and stop. But I was told that that one wasn't built high because people can go over, like the ones in West Somerville now do a great job. I guess basically my question is, how does one go about that street even checking?
So folks, the question was, how do you get speed humps on your street, whether temporary or permanent? I can speak more to the permanent, because again, we focus on the design aspect. And that's why I'm really excited if you can go take our survey, because one of our questions are, where are other locations you want to see speed humps in Ward 2? Now, we do prioritize locations for speed humps based on the amount of cars that are on the street. So if there's a higher amount of cars going through, then we know it's going to have more of an impact. We've also focused more on locations that are closer to where we might have a high amount of children, because we really want to make sure there's increased safety around there. So right now you'll see, those ones on Morrison and Kidder. Low, we're going to have the new Green Line station. So again, you're going to have lots of folks crossing and moving around. And then that's why we picked Dane, Calvin, and Perry. Well, I don't know I can answer when to expect it, but I would say definitely share that information. And I will also say that Councilor Scott shared a ton of input that we got in the process of this. We do, like I said, we prioritize locations where high amounts of volume or high volume of vehicles and children. But I also want to say that when we're doing these projects, we're coming in and we're going to reconstruct the street. We have the crews in town, they're right there. And so ideally too, we often prioritize areas where we have those crews. This is a great opportunity to give that input. Let us know where the locations you want to see. And then we can as we're developing the design for this project. Yeah.
Exactly how many parking spots are you taking away on one? Put the poles up, lights, that would take away almost all the parking.
So we are not removing all of the parking. I don't have the exact number for you, but we're maintaining one side of parking.
You are going to maintain one whole side?
Generally, so it'll switch from side to side as you travel down the street.
You're taking away almost all the parking.
No, so right now with those new pavement markings we put in November 2020, it's going to be relatively similar to that.
To what?
To the new pavement markings that were implemented in November 2020.
What pavement?
So the lines that you see out there now, they're a bit faded, so we're coming back in to fix those, but it's generally quite similar. There'll just be some changes to.
You don't know how many parking spots are being taken away?
I don't have that exact number off the top of my head. No, I'm
And
sorry.
you're here discussing that?
Well,
I think you're wrong and not know. That's all.
Oh, I'm happy to follow up with the exact number
I mean, it should be
afterwards.
disclosed by now, and how many exact parking spots you're gonna take away?
We're in the process of getting design feedback. So when we have the finalized designs, we are happy to share that exact number that we know. But again, we're looking for input from you to help us finalize those designs.
One online question.
Okay.
Can you go over what improvements will be done at Oak and how it?
Sure, and also I might call on my team member Jesse, who's a part of our engineering division, who also might have some more details. But essentially, we're going to be putting in all new crosswalks, new curb ramps, and to really make sure that intersection is safe. And Jesse Moose from our engineering division, do you have anything to add?
Hi, Jesse Moose, City of Somerville Construction Liaison. You may remember me from such projects as Beacon Street and Somerville Ave. I thought that was funny. So Oak and Houghton, I believe, is a raised table for the intersection. Is that what you want?
That was online.
Oh, I just assume if it's coming from Oak Street,
Yeah.
my friend over there. So that is planned in our next streets contract. We'll probably primarily focus on Washington Street, but we will be sending off the crews to do these smaller intersections at the same time. So plan ahead, guys.
Across, you know, the intersection, Webster and Prospect,
Mhm.
there's a crosswalk. On that section of Prospect Street, there's no other crosswalk. It's very dangerous. Thankfully, most people see that, don't walk the walk sign, there's a crosswalk, because they're not paying attention. And use that. Now you on bus can be very difficult coming and going with the left. And then walk away to Cambridge. Could we have a crosswalk in the middle?
So the question was around the desire for another crosswalk in Prospect Street, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, please continue to share that feedback. I don't know at this time what that is, but those are the things we always want to hear so that when we have these opportunities, yeah. And if you use 311 frequently, you can always send that to 311 and they'll send that to us too.
She knows where to find me.
All right, you know where to find Jesse.
Kate, we have one more question and then we'll keep it, we just want to be respectful. It's time.
Sarah, are you coordinating with Cambridge on the?
So the question was, are we coordinating with the city of Cambridge on their Inman Square work, correct? With our work. I think we were always in dialogue with Cambridge. And so when we're working on this project, I'll say the Washington Street project, we reach out directly and share, hey, this is what we're thinking. You know, what is going on, you know, just across the line, and like, how do we collaborate? But do you have a question specific about Inman Square?
Well, I do. For the neighborhood. They may be some
Yeah, and we also, each year we routinely do new data analysis collections or data collection, sorry, to analyze. So we'll go out there and see, are we seeing higher amounts of vehicles on this street? Are we seeing people take new patterns? I think we've all seen, particularly over the last 2.5 years, delivery routes completely change. We're watching people travel ways that we didn't know. And so to answer your question, yes, we're definitely always talking to Cambridge to learn and see what's going on, but we're also doing our own data collection efforts to understand how traffic patterns are changing in our city.
We also have a very good relationship with Cambridge where they have work going on Inman Square that's going to affect traffic, like Inman, like basically where Springfield Street is. They'll give us a heads up and we'll kind of coordinate it and communicate it with our emergency response teams and try also not to have our own major construction right there at the same time. All right, well, thank you guys. We'll be around.
Good evening, everybody. Rich Race, Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management. I will give kudos to anyone who knows what a Department of Infrastructure and Asset Management is. Go, right now. What do you think we do? That's cheating. The word to. So all right, I'll let you off the hook. We are responsible for the design and construction of improvements to all of our city-owned infrastructure. So our buildings, our roads, with the Washington Street project that Kate just described to you, when it actually becomes a construction project, engineering will manage that. We manage all of the upgrades to the water system into the sewer system. We are the ones that built the new high school. When this building and the other school buildings needed the air handling upgrades to handle COVID-19, we manage those upgrades to these buildings. We do a lot of roads. We do a lot of sewer work. The Saucy, the Somerville Ave drainage infrastructure was IAM, and the water work on Washington Street that preceded the roadway work is ours. One of the projects that we've been working on that is of interest to Ward 2 residents in the entire city is our lead service replacement. We are blessed in Somerville to have MWRA water, which is amongst the best water in the nation. MWRA consistently wins AWWA taste tests for being highest quality. We pride ourselves on making sure that that high quality water is in our water mains all the way through. That last link from the water main in the street into the houses, we also want to make sure that that's of the highest quality. So we've been strategically pulling out all of the remnants of lead services. We've taken out about 200 so far. We try to take out about 200 every year. We are opening up enrollment for the projects. Unlike some cities that only do from the main to the sidewalk, which is the portion that the city owns, we do at no expense to the homeowner or property owner all the way up to the building. So we pull that whole thing out and replace it. There's a website that you can go to. It's up on the screen to sign up. If you suspect that your house has a lead service, the database will let you know your eligibility, or even better, just talk to Jesse. And if you didn't know, we have the best Twitter account in the city, at least in my opinion, Somerville Infrastructure. Tweet us, we'll get you to the program. The other thing that we've been doing, you might have noticed some spot repairs to the sewers throughout Ward 2. We're about halfway done with that project. After years of neglecting our underground infrastructure, we set about with the support of the city council to properly fund an investigation program so we understand what the needs of our sewer and drainage system are. We find system defects before the pipes collapse and become sinkholes. Usually, we're going as fast as we can. Sometimes there are still collapses that we don't catch. This is a proactive program, preventative maintenance, to tackle our deferred maintenance. We've got a lot of pipe work happening in Ward 2. Sometimes it has to be dig and replace. Sometimes we're able to utilize trenchless technology so that we can get more pipe done quickly and with less disruption to the neighborhood. And we'll be going into the trenchless portion over the winter when it becomes harder to dig. It's very important that people along those lines watch for the notices, because as that cured in place pipeliner goes through, you do have to curtail some water use while that's happening before we can cut the services back out. But if your street is one of the streets that's on the list, you'll be hearing more from us on that. That again is focused more on maintaining the pipes that are in place. We are also doing long-range planning to upgrade the system. We know that Ward 2 suffers from flooding. In Ward 7 and Ward 4, we also have combined sewer overflow concerns. We're planning long-range capital improvements to the sewer system to address all those legacy problems. You should be hearing more about some outreach that we'll be doing for community engagement to help us with that long-term planning. So please keep an eye out for that. So if there are any questions about water, sewer, buildings, roads, happy to answer those now.
Thanks. Rich Hanson, I live on Washington Street. Can you help me with when the gas line replacement is ever going to end? And just as a subset, the contractor is very sloppy. He leaves equipment on the street, he comes and goes, digs up, he replaces, he digs up, he replaces. There's equipment that's been stored on Washington for months, hasn't been moved.
I'd like to welcome back to the mic Jesse Moose, who can help you with that problem.
I work for him. So the Eversource work is taking forever. We are well aware of this. This is a major project that needs to get done prior to us being able to do any sort of street construction. So we're actually in phase 2 of Washington Street. We did phase 1 a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, where we upgraded the water main. We had Eversource come in early this year and start doing the gas. So they're going from pretty much this building to Beacon Street. The expectation of finishing is mid-December. So 6 more weeks and we're done. and they will move on. But let's talk after this, and we can talk about where they're parking, because I have them move around a lot, so they're not just constantly in one spot. All right, thank you all.
Don't go too fast.
Hi, I live at 101 Beacon Street, which is kitty corner across from 94. 94 is the big, tall building where they had the terrible water problem maybe 2 months ago.
Yep.
Anyway, the reason they had the terrible water problem is that when they redid Beacon Street, they paved over the water shutoff from the street. So when the fire department came to try to shut it off, the first thing they had to do was try to excavate it and find it. That encouraged me to look up and down the street elsewhere. And I noticed that in front of my house, where there used to be a little round thing like this that said water on it, it isn't there anymore. They have paved over it. So I'm thinking I'm probably not the only one that happened to, given that it happened, looks like it happened to me and to the folks at 94. So could you put on your do list that you'll go up and down that section of Beacon Street and make sure that all of us can access our water shutoff?
Absolutely. I'll talk to the water department tomorrow.
I thought this was the guy.
Yeah.
No, this is the
Yeah,
other.
we'll give it to Carlos. Carlos will get right on it.
So we have a water.
We have a small army. It's fantastic.
So we have a water engineer. He'll go out and take a look and make sure they're not paved over.
Any more questions for Rich or Jesse?
About replacing telephone poles. There's a telephone pole on my street was tagged 40 years ago. It was hit by the trash truck. And several in my neighborhood. It's been there 100 years.
So about 2 years ago, so the question is about double utility poles or single ones that are tilting? Or both? Right, but the question is, it's a leaning pole or is it a double pole? Okay. So excellent. So I'm in communication with Eversource Electric, Verizon, Comcast. If you give me your address and we'll talk after this, I can look into it and see when they can come out. Councilor Scott knows I was able to jump on the pole right out front here when it was leaning too far into Washington Street and get them out here. With it. Okay.
Questions?
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, for the first time I feel tall. Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. All right, so I am Denise Molina Capers, the Director of the Racial and Social Justice Department for the City of Somerville. And the Department of Racial and Social Justice leads the City of Somerville in its equity efforts and collaborates with city departments, constituents, and stakeholders to eliminate the institutional and structural systems that create racial inequities, social disparities, and other social injustices. The reason why I mention our main mission is because, contrary to popular belief, our only job is not only to work on the initiative around public safety for all. We were established officially in 2021, and we have continued to build the department's capacity. We have hired an RSJ coordinator, Amanda Najim Williams, a community engagement specialist, Leonor Galindo, who is here today, a public information officer, Hawken Brooks. We have some updates for you today. The RSJ Youth League started a study with Somerville youth last year to collect data on youth perceptions of social justice in the city and to consider the design of the youth cabinet that will live under the RSJ department and allow a permanent way for our youth to engage in decision-making for the city. In September and continuing into October, the department has partnered with the Somerville Office of Immigrant Affairs and the Department of Health and Human Services and hosted free psychological first aid training sessions to city staff, frontline workers, and community leaders. And what we mean by community leaders is anyone in the community, like your neighbor, who is informed of what's going on and offers to give you information about what's going on in the city, the neighbor that knows all the kids in the neighborhood. These are people that we also consider community leaders. And so the RSJ department is building toolkits for everyone in the community to be a part of this work. So far, we have had over 100 people participate in these trainings. The community requested that the RSJ monitor the establishment of a system for reporting, investigating, and referring hate bias incidents. We are in the process of implementing a case management system known as FileVine. We are able to customize FileVine to track any and all relevant information to these complaints and cases and keep in contact with those who have filed the complaints and giving them consistent updates on their complaint. Around reimagining policing and public safety for all, the staffing and operations analysis, we have completed the phases of initial meetings and fact-finding, focus groups and interviews, data collection and analysis, and we are currently in the phase of recommendation development. The next phases after that would be report development and presenting the findings to the public. The policing and public safety perception is now published and available in 6 languages. You can find it online. Leo Galindo is also here today with some hard copies if you would like, and a QR code if you would like to just simply scan it. We are still conducting community visioning focus groups that have been ongoing since August, and we will be publishing some dates for in-person and virtual community visioning focus groups that you can sign up for. You can also sign up to be a host, to have your own group, and we will help you with all materials, location, anything needed in order to host your own visioning group. Civilian oversight, we were tasked with creating recommendations for what civilian oversight would look like in Somerville. A task force will be announced in November. This task force will be trained, informed, and knowledgeable about what a civilian oversight is and how it functions across different models. And this task force recommendation will align this knowledge and awareness with the needs of Somerville as a city and as voiced by its constituents. The commissions, Human Rights Commission and Somerville Commission for Women and the Somerville Commission for Persons with Disabilities, has an open call for 4 spots in each of the commissions, and they will be open until filled.
Good evening. As mentioned earlier, my name is Adrienne Pomeroy, and I serve the city of Somerville within the Racial and Social Justice Department as the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator. Denise already talked about the commissions. I am also the acting staff liaison for the Commission for Persons with Disabilities. Wanted to talk about a few things. In the spring, I conducted a ADA internal survey with internal key staff, and the findings were very encouraging. Most of our folks in various departments have a really good working knowledge of the ADA, and that has only increased with my position being filled last year, and also will influence and help me create trainings for our staff. And then we are starting with those trainings actually this week. I've started with our first responders in terms of our fire department, and we'll be training those folks all week to have more positive and great interactions with persons with disabilities on calls. And then finally, please be on the lookout for in early November for the ADA Community Survey, which will be your chance to comment on accessibility and ADA feedback that you may have for our division. Thank you. Any questions?
My name is Bill Ballantyne. At Brook Bottom, I've been working on the neighborhood plan for the past 9 years now. On several occasions, I've raised with the planning department the following question. We have one of the largest concentrations of minority workers in the city, working in the neighborhood. Gradually, all being displaced. There still is a very substantial number of minority workers in the neighborhood, as well as a concentration of immigrants from Spanish-speaking business owners who have the various repair shops and used car lots, etc. I've asked the planning department on several occasions whether they have the capability of looking at this population and working into the neighborhood plan. Some ideas of possible ways to activity in the neighborhood and keep our diverse workforce. As far as I know, nothing's been done with respect to that. And does your office have responsibility to look at a question like this?
So I guess I would say it depends. If the neighborhood association would like the RSJ department to speak with them and advise and help with what does it mean to add that into a strategic plan, and maybe some data that could be helpful to that end as well, as far as like what does outreach look like for that constituency and language access. We would be more than happy to help with that. Leo, if you can get his information.
Any additional questions for Denise and Adrian? Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of Chief Femino. He regrets that he couldn't be here tonight. I do attend all the meetings, so it's not like he forced me to come tonight. My name is Jim Donovan. I'm the captain of the Somerville Police Department. I've been with the department for 22 years. I grew up in Somerville, and my mom, 90 years old, still lives up in West Somerville. So I'm very much in connection with Somerville. And when asked, although I don't live in Somerville anymore, when asked where I'm from, it's Somerville. It's not the community I currently live in. My boys live in the community we live in. I'm from Somerville. So just so we all know. Before coming up here, I asked Chief Breen how much he would give me to sing a song to open up. He told me he was going to pay me not to sing. So good St. Clement's grad, fellow alum. As far as myself, I've been with the police department, like I said, for 22 years. I've been in every department within the department, with the exception of the traffic bureau. I was never in the traffic bureau, but I've been in detectives. I've held every supervisory position within the police department, and I'm currently assigned as patrol operations captain, which is all the men and women you see in uniform patrolling the streets every day. At the end of this, I will take some questions. We are running late, but I guarantee you I will not leave this building until everyone's questions asked one-on-one, for those of you who don't want to raise your hand. So as far as today's slides, I can't read, it's too small, my copy. Some status updates since our last community meetings a few years ago. As far as the community policing unit, we do get some questions about our community policing unit as far as outreach, homeless coalition, our seniors, block parties, things like that. At the moment, we do not have a community policing unit due to our staffing levels. We've had to pull back those community police officers and roll them back into patrol so we can staff our patrol and ward cars that you see patrolling your streets every day. At one time, we did have 14 I know when I started 20 years ago, we had 7 officers, 1 for each ward, as well as the supervisor in that unit. We hope at some point, if our staffing levels come up a little bit, we can reintroduce the community policing, at least in some form or fashion. As far as student resource officers, I know that's been a big issue. It's been talked about a lot. We currently do not have SROs in our schools. We did the STEPS program at one time as well. And what the STEPS program is that I believe it was the 5th grade, one officer would adopt the 5th grade class and would follow that class up until graduation. This year would have been our first year. Last year would have been our first year of a graduating class, having an officer follow them. And we did have some officers attend the graduation down at Dillboy Stadium, although they hadn't followed them through totally through school due to COVID and other reasons. As far as the SRO in schools go, I know the school committee has had a working group. I know our school committee members here tonight has had a working group with some PTOs about bringing the police back to the schools in some form or fashion. I don't necessarily know where that is, but that's a work in progress. Accreditations up there. We are an accredited department, which is unlikely for a department our size. We are a fairly large department in Massachusetts, and we are accredited. What accredited is we're held to meeting certain standards, best practices within law enforcement. And we've met those standards every 3 years. You have to get reaccredited, and we were reaccredited this year. We met 382 standards to achieve that reaccreditation. Police reform, we hear a lot about that in the media. There was legislation passed in Massachusetts that created posts. That's Police Officer Standards and Training Commission. And what they're doing is, it's a 9-member panel. And what they're doing is looking at every police officer, their records, their files, and certifying those officers that should be certified. And what happens if an officer is not certified? He or she is not allowed to be, is not licensed, we'll say, in Massachusetts. And if they were let go from Somerville or another community, they couldn't just jump to another community for employment purposes. They would be decertified. It's like a licensing in other professions, law licenses, medical practice, whatnot. Next slide, please. As far as crime, Ward 2, we have seen a 10% increase in crime in 1 year, 11% in 2 years. And I believe it says Ward 2 was 13% in 1 year and 14% over 2 years, with an 11%, 10% increase citywide. We looked at the statistics, and what we attribute that to is not violent crime. It's property crime. It's catalytic converters being stolen, which is the rage right now, as well as package thefts. And what we've done, after recognizing that, if we've taken some of our resources, like I said, we don't have the staffing necessary to add resources to any community, but we are shifting our resources from other areas of the city that have seen decreases in their crime or have held steady. So for example, we may pull the car in Ward 5 or Ward 6, depending on statistics, and we may pull them down to Ward 2 for part of their shift, for those purposes. Next slide, please. As far as crime prevention, we love to bring this up there. I talk to the community all the time. Best thing about my job as patrol captain is I can go out and walk around the community. The citizens of Somerville, paying me to get out there and meet the community. So I have the best job in the world. And I hear too often from citizens, my car got broken into the other day, or I went into my car and things were messed up, but nothing was stolen, so I didn't report it. If it doesn't get reported, we don't know about it. We don't have a crystal ball. We need your input, because we take that input and we direct our resources. So we tell everyone, don't leave your car open, but please, if your car does get broken into, tell us. As far as motor vehicle thefts, cars don't get stolen much anymore. We're seeing they get stolen when they're running now. Delivery drivers, Uber drivers, Uber Eats, I should say, DoorDash, or just delivery drivers. We've seen a spike in that in the last year. Bike thefts, self-explanatory. But I do encourage people, keep your serial numbers, keep your information, because when we do come across bikes, when we do stings, the only way to identify those bikes is with the serial numbers. And if you have them, we have them in our system, we can look them up. These bikes are very, very expensive. I just bought a couple myself this past year for my boys. And package thefts, Christmas is coming. So, I always encourage people, if you work during the day, try to have it delivered to a neighbor that's gonna be home to receive a package. I have all my packages delivered to Whole Foods. I pick them up there. So that's what I usually do. But we have seen a decrease in the past few years in package thefts, I think because people are home. But with people going back to work, we're concerned that we may see an increase in those thefts. Next slide, please. As far as the last slide goes, there was the catalytic converters. We are seeing New England's seen a increase in catalytic converters being stolen from vehicles. And what they do is they slide under your car. They're there about 15, 20 seconds, they go and they cut out the catalytic converter from your exhaust system. There's precious metals in that. They take to a scrap yard and they get money for it. We have an officer assigned to the regional task force on that, but it is very difficult, but it's almost a crisis level across the state and across New England. This slide is just numbers we always present in neighborhood meetings, just to provide you with information, domestic violence, mental health, as well as, sexual assault and such. Last slide. And these are numbers we have for the Somerville Police Department itself. That's a new email address we created this month for people. And we have anonymous crime tips that go directly to me. And the meeting slides are right there if you want to look at the meeting slides. Like I said, I can take a few questions now, but I won't leave this building until every question's answered. So does anyone have any questions? Right back there, sir.
Mentioned earlier, the police station's right down the street from me. I don't know if I moved in, I've never seen police in the neighborhood, and it feels to me that's the police. So I never see them. I had a discussion with Scott about speeding and speed humps. That the police are no longer enforcing traffic laws. Is this true?
No. We do enforce traffic laws. That's part of our job. We do have a traffic enforcement unit, although we've had because of staff cuts. We have taken one officer out of that unit, but we do still have a unit. I know we've set up down there in the past because I know that street. It is a busy street, very busy. And it's a cut through street. Like the mayor had mentioned, we have a lot of cut through traffic in that area is a cut through to Cambridge.
But it's not just that street. It's
Well,
all sorry.
Well, I realize that.
I've never seen somebody pulled over, but, JT and I, we had this discussion, and I understand it's a national thing, and of course, the consideration for people of color. So I totally understand that, but how do we make the streets safer if people are blowing through stop signs and red lights? Red lights, let me tell you something. It used to be people, turn red, people go through. Now it's 3 seconds afterwards. I mean, this was Cambridge. I was on Mass Ave, and I was waiting to go towards Arlington, and my light turned green. The other light had been red for about 3 seconds, and barreling through the red light, and I slammed right into her. I mean, I understand that the Somerville Police Department can't affect how people drive. The driving, in my opinion, has gotten worse by everybody, but like going through people go, and I'm not just saying cars, bicycles. I ride my bike, I walk, I see it all. It's a societal thing to one part of it, but people just stop lights are optional. I see more people when they're like, it's like they act like the light doesn't. It baffles.
Well, I will say, so we do have a traffic unit. We do enforce traffic laws. Our area cars make traffic stops. We have the traffic unit sets up at different places, different locations based on input from these meetings. So there's a certain location that you felt as though, needed traffic enforcement. We send a traffic officer out there. He or she would park there. They would do, a lot of times we get them and we send an officer out there and they say, yep, I've got 2 or 3 people. We move the resources elsewhere. But we will set up on certain locations that we get input from these meetings. I agree with you from a personal standpoint. I agree. I think disregarding traffic signal signs has increased. I don't want to blame it on COVID, because people seem to blame everything on COVID, but I do think it's a little bit having people cooped up. But as far as the police department goes, we do work with the infrastructure. We work with Brad Ross and we work with Rich. Changing someone's habits isn't all about enforcement and education through policing. It's about changing the environment. Speed humps, bump outs, reducing the speed in the city and then enforcing it. I'm sorry? We actually, I think there's legislation in place now in the state going forward with that. We're not opposed to it. We're not opposed to it.
So I asked a question earlier. Speed bumps. Is it possible to get to that street coming off of Webster? into, sorry, Newton into Clark Street. I mean,
Wait.
the speed there, I wish I could, I'm trying to find an app on my.
The police department has no control over speed bumps. That's infrastructure. We have no input as to where they put them.
Okay.
So we don't recommend them. We don't, yeah, that's completely infrastructure. That's, Rich Ray's and his people. And, well, not Rich, but it's someone else, who's here tonight. Jesse, yeah, Jesse. Okay. Yep.
Any other questions for Captain Donovan?
Thank you. Wow, this is loud. Come on, guys. You guys talk this the whole time. I can sing. You want me to sing a song? Which one? Okay, I'll get back to you. All right, I'm gonna say this because you brought up automated enforcement. Hi, my name is Councilor Bradley Jr. I put forward some some proposed language so that Massachusetts, that Somerville can adopt the Massachusetts law that would allow us to do automated enforcement. Currently, we can't with our laws on the books, but we've been talking with the mayor's office about what that could look like. I'm hopeful that it would allow residents to 311 requests that are actually acted upon when vehicles are breaking a lot of these rules or other folks are breaking a lot of these rules, because it takes time to get out there. And by the time you do that, they're gone. So that's one thing. To the overall questions around traffic, though, I've been working with mobility and engineering, and need to reach out to traffic about that Safe Streets ordinance that will hopefully standardize a lot of these things. I know a lot of people have a lot of confusion about how do we get a speed bump here, how do we get a raised crosswalk, where are bike lanes going, how do we increase accessible parking in the community when all this parking is going to waste, that both can actually get where they need to go. We're working on it. It should be coming very soon. I'm hopeful that the council will be talking about this in the next few months. But I just want to again thank everyone who's come out tonight, because the way you get all this done is you talk to your council, you talk to KT, you talk to me. Kristen has walked away, but you call up Kristen, and we have the pathways to talk with these folks. Everyone else does too, and you should. But we will have a lot of these conversations moving forward. So please reach out to your local representatives because we're here to work for you. Thank you.
It's right there in the corner.
Hi, so thanks for all of the information. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about changes the department has made since 2020. I think a lot of our residents are really concerned about disparate impacts on communities of color and police brutality and criminalization of people of color. And so I was hoping that you could talk about, what are you doing differently that you weren't doing before?
Thank you. The question was, what have we changed regarding policing, specifically the Somerville Police Department, that we weren't doing before as a result of societal changes, let's say in the last 2 years. I know that my chief and my command staff meet with Denise Molina Capers weekly and coordinate with her. We have increased our training, diversity training, our implicit bias training, and the state now mandates our trainings as well. So as part of our training every year, we have some training related to that within our 40 hours of training. In addition to that, like I said, we work with Denise Molina Capers on going forward and reimagine policing in Somerville. And I think, from someone who's been here for 20 years, but expects to be for another 10 years, we look forward to change. At least as a young member of the command staff, I look forward to change within the Somerville Police Department. Although I'm very proud of where the Somerville Police Department is and where they've been, I look forward to change because change is a good thing. It keeps you nimble, keeps you on your toes, and it makes you better. And I think that's what we're going forward. That's what we're doing. But training is really a big part of that within all our ranks, and it's mandated training, but we have extra trainings as well. And I know we still work with Denise Molina Capers on additional trainings as a result of her studies, as a result of the questionnaire she's put out. That's what the citizens want to see from us, because ultimately we work for all of you. We don't make anything. I meet with new officers all the time. I tell them 3 things. I tell them, first of all, safe retirement. So my dad told me that when I was young. I tell them, remember, everything you do is being video and audio recorded. Everything. Just if you work like that and know that, it creates transparency. And the third thing I tell them to do is remember that we don't create anything at the police department. We don't make anything. We don't make widgets from economics class in college. We provide a service. And if we're not providing a good service, why are we doing this job to begin with? We're service providers, like any other service provider. We're not electricians, we're not plumbers, we're service providers. Yes, sir. Like I said, I'll be here to answer any questions you may have after. I said I won't leave until the last person gets their questions answered. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. This concludes the Ward 2 meeting. As I said earlier, staff will be hanging out. If you have any additional questions you'd like to talk about one-on-one. If you would prefer email, you can email any feedback or questions to cm@somervillema.gov. Thank you for coming out tonight. The recording will be up on YouTube in the coming days. Thank you.